Thank you so much for staying with us here on News Nation Now. I'm Nicole Burley here in Chicago. And right now we are closely watching this breaking news out of the Middle East. Tensions once again on the rise on the borders of Israel. You're looking live at Beirut, where within the last hour, the Israeli Defense Forces saying it has carried out a successful strike on the Hezbollah commander responsible for a deadly rocket attack that killed 12 children playing on a soccer field over the weekend. Now, as you look live, you can see damage from that strike. The U.S. State Department already responding. They are urging a diplomatic solution to the ongoing conflict.
Our commitment to Israel's security is ironclad and unwavering, and the threat that Israel faces from Hezbollah is very real as the events that we saw unfold this weekend. But our focus continues to be on diplomacy. We continue to believe that diplomacy is the best path forward. We think that is the best way right now to calm tensions along the blue line and to create conditions that will allow civilians to return home. That's our focus.
Is it still your assessment?
Well, News Nation's Kelly Beeson has been following this breaking news for us. Kelly, what more do we know?
Well, at this hour, Nicole, we're just getting an image that the IDF has released, and it looks to be the Hezbollah leader that was targeted. Now, we still are working to confirm that information, but we do have that image, and it was just into the newsroom. As you outlined, Nicole, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, he vowed his response to this weekend attack would be severe, and that's the photo we were speaking about earlier. Now, that warning came after a rocket strike from Lebanon that killed 12 children on an Israeli soccer field. This was over the weekend. And on Monday, Netanyahu blamed Hezbollah for that attack. So now the IDF has tweeted confirmation that they hit that Hezbollah commander, and we threw up his image a bit earlier. They say ordered the strike. Now, it is important to note, Nicole, so far there's no confirmation that the strike was successful in killing the commander, who Israel says ordered that deadly strike over the weekend. And of course, there's widespread concern that tensions may severely escalate in the region as a result. World leaders are on high alert. We are expecting to hear more from the White House at any moment, Nicole.
All right, Kelly Beeson following this breaking news out of our newsroom. Kelly, thank you. Joining me now is Major Glenn Ignacio, a former Air Force Special Ops pilot and military analyst. Major, thank you so much for giving us some of your time on this breaking news. First question for you, was retaliation inevitable?
Yes, that is definitely something Israel is not going to let just go by the wayside, especially when children were affected. You know, we've seen many of these attacks going on since Hamas invaded and did the assault in October. The issue now is that you're starting to see much more impact to civilians and more death rising, both on sides in Israel and in Lebanon. So, yes, absolutely expected Israel to respond, and they responded actually a lot quicker than I expected.
Now, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says he does not believe that full-blown war at this point is inevitable. What do you think happens next, Major?
Yeah, I don't believe it's inevitable, but we are definitely ratcheting things up to get closer and closer. And it's very interesting about how people perceive, or at least the opinion on this. We saw this incredible launch of rockets, missiles from Iran. Fortunately, that was defended against, but that was significant if we look at that action. The same thing with these actions that are going on in Lebanon is that rockets have always been launched since the October date into Israel. But again, we're starting to see a lot more people and collateral damage of civilians being hit and killed on both sides. So we are getting closer and closer. You can also see this on the international front, where you're seeing Egypt say, hey, if this is to go on into Lebanon, we're going to step in and start defending Lebanon. You saw the same thing with a comment, I believe it was last evening, from the leader of Turkey, saying the same thing, is that they're ready to come to the aid of Lebanon and counter Israel. So things are ratcheting up, both politically with the voice of the rhetoric around the world, but also in operations where we're seeing, unfortunately, more children and more civilians killed.
You know, we know that countries like the UK, Germany, France, obviously the United States have been urging citizens to leave Lebanon. Do you think that needs to continue? I mean, is this only going to get worse?
Unfortunately, I would lead on the side of great precaution, which I would recommend the Americans pull themselves out of the high risk area. You know, some will, some won't. But the situation as it is escalating, I would love to see this calm down. But we have seen this go for months now. It's just seeing the direct impact that is escalating that is now showing up on televisions around the world. So I do believe we're getting closer to it. I believe Americans need to pull out of there, and let's lean on the side of caution to make sure that there is no conflict. You know, there are 10,000 UN troops within that border of Lebanon and Israel to keep the peace. But remember, Hezbollah is a terrorist organization funded by Iran, and Iran was going to proceed with other actions after that initial attack on Israel that failed. So, yes, it is a raising concern for any Americans or any others that are in the area.
Now, let's talk more about this actual strike that we know the IDF claims killed its Hezbollah leader. Apparently, this slain commander was wanted for a 1983 bombing in which 241 U.S. service members were killed at a U.S. Marine barracks. Does it make a difference, Major, in your estimation, if this Hezbollah leader was actually killed, as the IDF claims?
I always believe it's going to have an impact in leadership, but just like most organizations, they do have other people that are going to step up. But it does show the ability to reach out and get those important people. The IDF is really good at this. I know people question their intelligence from the Hamas attack, but IDF and Israeli intelligence is phenomenal in this space as far as offensive operations. And so knowing who is in charge and what their network is and where they are is something that the IDF and the Israeli intelligence have always focused on. So the idea to reach out, get this individual very specifically and surgically attacked is something that's very significant. And yes, individuals like this need to be taken out. And unfortunately, there will be others to replace it, but that knowledge and experience he has will be an impact to the organization.
All right. I just want to clarify again, the IDF claiming this commander was killed. Right now, there has been no confirmation of whether or not that actually happened. Major, do you think with this latest move, this means a ceasefire is likely off of the table as of right now?
Great question. I mean, I try to look at it as two separate events, but they are intertwined in some ways, where the ceasefire and the ability to get to a ceasefire in Gaza with Hamas is one of the things that we see this escalatory events with Hezbollah and so forth. So if we can get to that, that'd be great. Does it put things in contention? I think it does from the Israeli side, because they do see them closely aligned. But the biggest focus for Israel right now is to get those hostages free. So if there's some balance that is fair and equitable on both sides to get to the peace, or at least to get to that ceasefire, they will, because the hostages are the focus. Right now, if they can keep these two separate, and I hope they can focus on those issues with Hamas, yet unfortunately get into a more direct conflict, or at least defensive nature, with Hezbollah.
And I know we want to get to the White House briefing, but Major, I want to ask you, and I know that this is a very difficult and loaded question, but how do you think this ends?
Oh, yeah, that is a great question. I think that these things are going to escalate, and I feel like we're on the brink of something. And when I say brink, that could be either de-escalation or escalation. I know it's a certain, type of position to take, but I do believe that we are at very, very heightened awareness right now, and something has to break. Let's hope that that is the rescue, or at least the hostages getting out. And Hezbollah has been on the offensive, and we really are going to see in the coming days what's going to happen. But it is a tough, ratcheted, dangerous situation, probably the highest tension we've had so far.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Major Glenn Ignacio, weighing in on today's breaking news as tensions escalate in the Middle East.